Chapter 3, Ternary Component. The way was clear. 11 minutes later, Alpha Squad reached the target, downing mines, and attacked it. An industrial facility occupied by the enemy is the worst nightmare of any assault infantry officer. You can't call in the attack aircraft to wipe the damn sorting blocks and the Crovern shuttles waiting to be loaded off the face of the earth. Tanks cannot fire at full power. They could destroy the precious raw materials that the entire operation was launched for. Moreover, in the industrial labyrinth, any harmless cybermech can easily be mistaken for an enemy combat robot. You have to shoot every suspicious piece of metal, and after inaccurate shooting, a tower crane is constantly threatening to fall on you. And finally, you expect a huge explosion at any moment. Who knows how the Croverns will behave? Why wouldn't they blow up their ship along with half of the local continent? Why wouldn't they, after all, turn on any of the industrial reactors? Why not run away, leaving their planetary cruisers to burn down this factory of one-breathers? Fortunately, there were many of us. The command assigned more than a dozen platoons just for the battle in downing mines. There were tanks, too. However, they guard. It's understandable. A tank in an industrial zone is like a bull in a china shop. We approached the mines via one of the longest routes. During this time, platoons from other assault companies of our battalion had already managed to approach them from the north, west, and east. It was something terrific. A huge dome covering the entire production area, relatively modest in height. Here and there in the dome were large holes. The number of holes was growing rapidly. When the Croverns suddenly descended on mines, the guards and workers did put up a fight. Judging by the fragmentary reports they managed to send through the backup communication node, they even managed to kill a few Croverns. I don't really believe that, but if they did, then honor and glory to them. But the most important thing was not the killed stingrays, that is, the Croverns. It was the fact that about 300 staff members were able to gather within the emergency perimeter. The emergency perimeter is a spacious, airtight bunker that every company is required to build at an extraterrestrial industrial facility. There are various scenarios: earthquakes, radioactive hazards, viruses, irrational predatory creatures that were overlooked by biological reconnaissance at the time. Oh, what predatory creatures there are! Very irrational and terribly voracious. So, our goal was to destroy the enemy. That's the first thing. Second, to accept heavy transport boats that would take iridium, concentrate, and other things more expensive than gold away from here. Third, and most delicate, to evacuate those who were lucky enough to survive the occupation from the emergency perimeter. Downing Mines plot was entered into our military computers with precision bordering on the absurd. What's more, each of us was assigned a main route and 5 or 6 backup routes with options for switching from one route to another. And even more than that, gentlemen, the headquarters analyzed and entered into our militums all the potential dangers that a soldier might encounter as he traveled along his route. We broke into the Downing Mines through a fresh, smoking hole the size of a tank landing craft. The hole was made by the guns of armored monsters from the famous Crusaders Battalion. Everything was going according to plan. Here it was, my main route. A narrow passage between 2 walking loaders. I wanted to rush straight into it at full speed, but Militum hinted that I should hit the cabins of both loaders. Good advice. I give the command with my voice. I'm used to using my voice, but many people use the so-called finger tapping method. It's a little faster, but using your voice is more reliable, and you don't need any special skills. My standard sidearm, a Suzdal rocket-propelled automatic rifle, slides out of the back fairing of my exo-armor and fits neatly under my right arm. The speed of an active bullet fired from this thing is such that all 300 kilograms of exo-armor, along with the infantryman, should fly half a kilometer away due to the recoil. Or, if you shoot from the hip, your right arm will be torn off, along with your collarbone. By the way, there have been cases, but to ensure that such cases are rare, the Suzdal shock absorber causes a micro-explosion with each shot, and a jet of gas shoots out from under the shooter's right elbow, compensating for the bullet's energy. That's why the Suzdal is called a reactive automatic weapon, and not at all because it fires rockets, as some reporters believe. Damn liars. 2 single shots. The cabs of the loaders are blown to smithereens. An active bullet is not some stupid rocket. It is the true quintessence of death, as our lieutenant used to say. If only we knew what quintessence meant. What next, Militum? 100 meters ahead. Behind the loaders, I must stop. 4 termites. I shoot, then immediately move left and up. These bastards have excellent reactions, but their vertical guidance servos lag behind their guidance systems. That's what we were taught. But in front of me, it seems, are improved models. A beam, more precisely an ultra-thin jet, of an acid laser pierces my left leg just below the knee. So fast? The Suzdal howls. Pieces of termite fly up, mixed with terrifying scraps of black and yellow metal. One of them passes very close to my head. I immediately fall to the ground. The last thing I need is for a dragonfly to embroider crosses on me at the level of the warehouse roofs. It's better for someone born to crawl to fly lower. The exo-armor hastily patches the hole. That's bad. I mean, it's good that it's patching it up, but it's very bad that I got hit during my first firefight. In this operation, our regenerative reserves were reduced to a minimum. Instead, they added 2 external batteries and a vibro drill. The command reassured us. There are few Kroverns at the factory, and activity is low. Enemy reinforcements will not get through to Downing mines. They won't be allowed through by the fire control units of the 7th Squadron, the Fulcrums, and the Spades. But we will have to deal with evacuating people from the underground emergency circuit, yes. And vibro drills will be more useful there than whole tanks of regenerative fuel. That's true. When the hot stuff came, our platoon didn't need regenerative things. The worst thing is that I don't know if the beam really reached my leg or not. The exo-armor could have immediately blocked my nervous system around the affected area. This is done so that the infantryman continues to fight instead of whining. My toes seem to be moving, and for that, I am grateful. Further on, the route runs along a pipe twice my height. Here, it is recommended to switch the gliders to walking mode, hug the pipe, and keep your eyes peeled. I'm walking. In my headphones, I hear the usual battle chatter. So far, everything seems fine. The pipe says, keep to the right, do not cross the yellow line. Guarded by rocket launchers. Yeah, but I don't see any yellow line. Parallel to the pipe, about 15 meters away, there are identical black cubes with no windows or doors. Between the cubes are narrow passages. Through them, I can see someone shooting at someone else. Trails from active bullets flash in the air. They are so fast that their trail is visible in any atmosphere. The air ionizes and sparkles faintly. Clearly, these cubes are some kind of chemical blocks, most likely. Secret ones? There is a long, fresh streak on the matte surface of one of the cubes. A micro crack? What kind of junk is leaking out of it? And where is the promised yellow stripe? Only then do I notice that the yellow stripe is there after all. There isn't much of it left. No. There is a faint spot, barely visible on the dark polymer. Why is that? It seems that some kind of incomprehensible reaction has taken place here. Some kind of liquid has completely etched away the paint that was used to apply the yellow stripe. Unformed thoughts about all kinds of chemistry, which I understand as well as a cook understands cosmetic surgery, flash through my mind. I remember inappropriately that the Kroverns sometimes use so-called chemical reactors when climate-controlling planets. Kroverns are the kings of planetary transformation. We can do it too, but the Kroverns have a better approach. The Commonwealth spent 80 years on the exemplary climate control of Mars. Our 2 breathing enemies, Kroverns, cooked up Eveline planet in 10 standard days. They say that Kroverns can calculate an entire planet, with its core and mantle, continental plates and oceans, volcanoes, mountains, depressions, and glaciers. And supposedly, thanks to these calculations, Kroverns know how to destroy the planet's former ecological balance with a single finger, across the entire planet, and create a new one to their liking. Thinking too much is harmful. A huge mother jumps out of the passage between 2 cubes, so unexpectedly that Serge Van Grim, who was thinking about the intricacies of chemistry, doesn't even have time to get properly scared. Curiously, the passageway was, indeed, guarded by rocket launchers. But the most curious thing is that they were turned on. I don't know who activated them or when. It may even be that no one turned them on, and the Croverns simply didn't have the sense to turn them off. For a whole week? Doubtful. Mother caught a hefty charge that blew her to pieces right in the air. Shreds of sloppy, squelching flesh covered me from head to toe. Weak discharges crackled between the monster's metal skeleton and the pipe. But if this snail shell had been, so to speak, assembled, I would have been in for a megavolt electric shock. I can't say that exo-armor isn't designed for that. I would probably survive, but what would I do in a heavy dead shell with all its energy systems failed? I would probably have time to curse a couple of times, and then the beak of the battle snail, strong as the flaps of a fulcrum, would find a weak spot in my dead armor. Battle snail is what we call the mother. But who can pronounce that? It gets worse. Following the Croverns' electric mollusk, a person jumped out of the passageway, and no rocket launcher cut him down. Just a man, not an assault infantryman. He was dressed in a work suit, thickly smeared with blood, and it seemed the contents of those distillation cubes. The suit was actually smoking. He wasn't even wearing gloves, let alone exo-armor. However, his left hand was missing, which reduced the need for gloves by exactly half. The unknown hero was equipped with a light oxygen mask. In his right hand, he held an iron log. A hose 3 fingers thick trailed behind the log. Who else but me, a former underwater installer, would recognize this barbaric contraption as an old model plasma welder? It's a great thing. You can cut rocks with it, and with the right skills, you can open cans. Occasionally, it is used for its intended purpose. And today it turned out that it could also serve as an improvised replacement for an automatic rocket launcher. The man, and he was, of course, a burly, dark-skinned worker, otherwise how could he have carried this damn thing in one hand, hobbled over to me. I gave him a thumbs up. Well done. Thank you. You're number one. I owe you one. Double bourbon. On me. He yelled something and looked more angry than happy to have saved the life of a government assault infantryman. What kind of language is that? Militum asked if translation was needed. He's still asking. The language is Spanish. There are words from the Quiche Indian language, Militum reported. What the hell is Quiche? Get out of here, quick! There's no one here. No one! The man yelled in that same language. He didn't look crazy. What did he mean, no one? Who was he? If the Croverns allowed the mine staff to walk around here, then maybe everyone else had already come up to the surface, huh? Everything's over now. The ternary component is leaking. Can't you see? He rolled his eyes angrily, poking his iron rod right under his feet. The ternary component of what? I'm an idiot, of course, but I think you need at least 2 more for a major disaster. 2 components, 2 other kinds of chemical crap. Otherwise, how is it ternary? Explain clearly, my speech synthesizer growled in Spanish. Who are you? What's going on here? The man finally realized it was better to switch to interlingua. Biological Safety Officer Shaka Dumoulier. Yesterday they broke through the perimeter. Things here are not what you think. There are no more people. The last transmissions were not from us. It was a deception by the Croverns. We couldn't do anything. Shibalba. What about the ternary component? Dumoulier growled with anger. So we have a communication crisis on our hands. They don't need iridium, my interlocutor hissed. At the mines, they were only interested in the synthesis machines. Thanks to our captured technology, the Croverns didn't have to bring in almost anything of their own. The synthesis machines, Dumoulier nodded at the black cubes, already have the reagents. Less than an hour left, maybe minutes, and the Croverns will start climate control. But uncontrolled climate control will happen right now, because I pulled a couple of fuses. Ha 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 ha. Do you realize that you've set up at least 800 people? How could I have known about your operation? I thought I was going to kill 100 Croverns and an entire army of termites. I pulled the fuses. I left the control room. And then the first shots rang out. I had no idea about your landing party. I thought I had done my duty, honestly. Before going to the control room, you should have stayed for a cup of coffee. Dumoulier didn't smile. I was doing my duty, he repeated. Yeah, that's the type. The suicidal hero. I'm dying, but I'm not giving up, sort of. However, one can understand him. In fact, the very fact of the operation was strictly classified, not to mention the exact time. He thought the Croverns would escape retribution, and he decided to become the Sword of Vengeance himself. Can the safety pins be put back in place? It's too late. The component has leaked. My job is not to think, but to relay information to the command. Alpha 1, calling Fang. Calling Fang. I repeat, Fang is on the line. Beta, she, who can hear me? Not a peep. I've expanded the range to battalion level. I have the right to do so. This is urgent information. There's going to be a climoclastic storm. I'll be right in the epicenter. Hurricane-force winds, stronger than those of the days of creation, will tear the skin from the flesh from the bones. They'll tear me to pieces, scatter me across the planet. But if my message is intercepted at headquarters, I am guaranteed the Fiery Cross, posthumously, of course. And my mother, as Sergeant Gusak aptly remarked, will be rolling in money for the rest of her life. It doesn't matter that she's a major in the Special Forces and gets such a fat paycheck from the government that the compensation for her good-for-nothing private son is simply unimaginable. A new car and a fur coat from a prestigious designer. Platoon 2, Company 1, calling battalion. Everyone who can hear me. Everyone who can hear me. But no one hears me. Well, maybe everyone is already dead. I had the sense to launch the probe. It's my spare eyes, ears, and, if I'm lucky, my tongue. It's clear that the air situation in places like this can be pretty shitty, and it was about time for the Croverns to turn on their jammers. The probe hung under the reinforcement of the damaged dome and reported that it had begun scanning. Finally, they responded. It turned out that Gusak had been listening to my conversation with Dumoulier. I wonder how he heard us since I couldn't even shout to the battalion commanders. Never mind. So my output was working fine, but the shortwave input was blocked. Maybe something shorted out in the electrical part of the mother, but I can't see myself from behind. Well, fine. Gusak knows, the lieutenant knows, and soon the operational headquarters will know too. In any case, I didn't have to retell the whole story from the beginning. Upstairs, as it turned out, there was already a terrible commotion. They figured it out surprisingly quickly, though, so order number 1, everyone off the synthesis machine platform, dig into the ground and deep. I didn't need to be asked twice. I ordered Dumoulier to throw away his plasma gun and hold on to me tightly. He parted with his weapon very reluctantly. I think if he had been sure that the hose was long enough, he would have kept it. The gliders had to strain a little. We, me and Dumoulier, who was clinging to my left leg like an orangutan on a palm tree, soared above the pipe. I glanced to the right, studying the tactical markings projected by the Military onto the viewing glass. In the difficult hour of climax, I will be happy to die alongside my dear friends, Zag, Siegfried, and Gusak. Aha, there they are. They gathered near the second ventilation shaft. Oh, what I saw as I flew. Our infantry swarmed over the factory in whole flocks. It seems I got one of the most isolated routes. Perhaps because I'm new. Because most of our people worked in sections of 3 to 5 people. And now all these sections were rushing to get away from the synthesis machines. I flew low over a swarm of motionless termites. Like new recruits, only black. This was the work of the plasma cannon, the main trump card of the fire sections. But some of our guys weren't so lucky. Their heads were separated from their bodies, which were pushed out through cracks in their exo-armor. An internal explosion. I wonder what caused it. Left without its owner, the Suzdal raced around like a wind-up toy, banging against the stacks of channels with a deafening clang. The fire selector in the Suzdal short-circuited. The machine gun spat out jets of flame, but did not fire. What a fury.